Today on Investigate TV Plus, shortages of critical medication continue to increase, and doctors say the consequences could be deadly. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Our investigation reveals how manufacturers play a role in what's being done to address the problems in the supply chain.
It is an incredibly complicated problem and one that sometimes leads to tragic choices.
Plus, firefighters rush to save lives in gear that could put their health at risk.
It's doing the job, but it's also hurting us and possibly killing us.
An in-depth look at efforts to remove cancer-causing toxins from their equipment and the hurdles to find safer alternatives.
And finding hidden lessons one stitch at a time.
So there was this special type of quilt that meant for slavery.
How a quilt master's wisdom is inspiring young minds.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. It's an ongoing crisis with no end in sight.
From antibiotics to cancer treatments, hundreds of vital drugs are in short supply. According to a 2023 Senate committee report, between 2021 and 22, drug shortages increased by almost 30%. Reaching a 5-year high of 295 active shortages.
And this is not a new problem. The report details that more than 15 critical drug products have been in short supply for more than a decade. Experts say increased demand can cause shortages, but how drugs are made and sold in the country can contribute significantly.
Reporter Kristen Crowley introduces us to patients and practitioners navigating the supply challenges firsthand, and those tackling the issue head on.
You open up the cube.
9-year-old Josh Didier likes a good challenge.
Let me try to solve this.
He has fun putting puzzles together because they have solutions.
Come on, you got this, you got this.
But for months, one puzzle has been unsolvable for his Kansas City area family, and it's no game.
This seems like something that we could figure out.
Josh has ADHD.
Every other day I take one of these.
3 of his siblings have it too. His parents, Jeremy and Brian, say they know how to keep the disorder at bay.
Medication is the thing that helps them most.
But getting prescriptions filled, that's another thing.
We have our recipe for success and we can't get the ingredients.
More than a year into a nationwide ADHD medication shortage, Jeremy says making it all work hasn't been easy.
It's a full-time job. It's a lot.
Most recently, she says, she's had difficulty getting one of the medications Josh takes daily. She keeps hearing the same story from pharmacies.
It's back ordered and there is literally no date as to when it's going to be in stock.
And what happens if he doesn't take it?
Well, he gets pretty bouncy in class. He's making weird noises, he's throwing things at other students, he's kind of being singled out probably by other kids as okay, that kid is weird. What is going on over there? And it's heartbreaking.
ADHD affects more than 17 million children and adults in the United States. But the pharmaceutical shortage isn't limited to ADHD medication. In fact, hundreds of drugs have been impacted recently. Among them, children's medication, antibiotics, and cancer treatments.
Why are we seeing so many drug shortages?
We're near about a 10-year high, and most of the shortages that we see are due to some sort of quality or process issue with manufacturing.
Dr. Michael Gania with the American Society of Health System Pharmacists says cost is a driving factor.
In some of these generic medications, there may be actually manufacturers that are losing money on some of these products. So they'll eventually change their portfolio to things that are more profitable. And that makes the market less resilient and more prone to shortages.
The FDA declined to speak on camera, but said in a statement, the public should rest assured the FDA is working closely with numerous manufacturers and others in the supply chain to understand, mitigate, and prevent or reduce the impact of intermittent or reduced availability of certain products. But these shortages are nothing new.
The drug shortages have been a chronic plague for the last number of decades. They've become more frequent, more severe, and more unpredictable.
Dr. Andrew Schumann specializes in head and neck cancers at the University of Michigan Medical School.
So what happens when somebody who needs their cancer treatment can't get the medication they need?
It is an incredibly complicated problem and one that sometimes leads to tragic choices.
A 2020 study published in the British Medical Journal found that every month delayed in cancer treatment can raise the risk of death by around 10%. Schumann testified to Congress in March 2023, raising a red flag on that issue.
Sick Americans deserve access to life-saving medications.
It's one that Senator Gary Peters is working to address. He authorized a recent report on the health and national security risks of drug shortages.
And while some shortages may only be an inconvenience, others have had devastating impacts on patient care.
Working with other lawmakers, Peters introduced legislation in 2023 aiming to address vulnerabilities in the pharmaceutical supply chain and increase availability.
I thought, I want to be the change I want to see in the world.
Meanwhile, one mother in Florida has taken matters into her own hands.
There was no place to call for a patient or a family like me, and I found that very frustrating.
In 2019, using her business background and expertise, Laura Bray founded the nonprofit Angels for Change. She works with members of the supply chain, including drug makers, hospitals, and the FDA, to fill supply gaps, often tracking down extra medications or alerting manufacturers to increased demand.
People began to call, and then hospitals and physicians and pharmacists. And every single time we just tried to help. We said, I'll try. And each time I tried, I met new members of the supply chain who were willing to do extraordinary work with me.
It's a passion project born from personal adversity. Laura's daughter, Abby, was diagnosed with leukemia at just 9 years old.
They told us that the number one thing that we could do as parents was compliance of the protocol.
But the hospital didn't have the medication Abby so desperately needed. Laura called pharmacies, lawmakers, and pharmaceutical companies until she miraculously found an extra supply.
I know what happened to our family shouldn't exist. That is what drives me.
Today, Abby is cancer-free. And this chief changemaker has helped hundreds of thousands more, securing hundreds of treatments of more than 24 medicines on shortage. Hope amidst so much uncertainty.
It just seems like we're moving backwards.
The Didier family is trying to solve this problem the best they can, waiting for a solution they say is long overdue.
The fact that we cannot get that medication right now for all the people who absolutely need it is incredibly frustrating, and the fact that we have no answers as to why that is happening or a plan for that to be resolved, unbelievable. How does that happen in this world?
In late 2023, President Biden announced nearly 30 new actions aiming to strengthen supply chain resilience, including plans to convene a new White House council on the issue and to deploy the Defense Production Act, which would help U.S. manufacturers make more essential medicines right here at home.
As for what you can do, experts recommend patients have open conversations with their prescribers and pharmacists about any difficulties obtaining medication.
They say ask about available alternatives and mention any concerns you might have about switching prescriptions.
If you want to avoid the drill at the dentist, you might need to do more than just cut candy from your diet. Still to come, the medical mythbuster gives us insight into a compound that causes cavities.
But first, an in-depth look at a dangerous gamble firefighters take to keep their communities safe.
Feels like a ton of bricks. Feels like weight on my shoulders of, is this the time that I'm going to get sick again?
We uncover what's being done to outfit firefighters with equipment that's free of a chemical linked to cancer.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
Firefighters require a high degree of protection in order to do their jobs, but research reveals their gear contains chemicals that could put their health at risk. PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, are often heat resistant, but have been linked to harmful health effects, including cancer.
Reporter Blair Sable investigates what's being done to address firefighters' exposure and the complications that come with some solutions.
It's doing the job, but it's also hurting us and possibly killing us.
Charleston Fire Department engineer Steve Azzarello was diagnosed with thyroid cancer 4 years ago.
Nothing can brace you for that word.
He's been a working fireman since he was 18. His diagnosis led to 3 surgeries, one of which caused partial and permanent paralysis and intense radiation. Though he has a clean bill of health now.
It's going to be a lifelong battle.
What does it feel like when the alarm goes off, you're responding to a call, and you have to put on that gear again?
It feels like a ton of bricks. It feels like weight on my shoulders of, is this the time that I'm going to get sick again?
There's no telling what exactly caused Azzarello's cancer, but his doctor says without a doubt he got it on the job. Firefighters are faced with repeated exposures to known carcinogens like burning materials and dirty gear, as well as suspected ones like PFAS in firefighting foam and gear. Departments now have protocols in place like immediately washing gear after a call to cut their risk. But PFAS are a more complicated challenge to tackle. In fact, according to the International Association of Firefighters, there is no gear currently on the market that is made without the chemicals. Brian Ormond, a textile researcher at North Carolina State University, says that's because these kinds of chemicals are really good at what they do, repelling both water and oil.
They're put there for a purpose.
PFAS represent thousands of man-made chemicals that can be found in a variety of products, from nonstick cookware pans to electronics to food packaging, cosmetics, and more that do not break down over time. The Environmental Protection Agency has identified the potential of these chemicals to cause harm to human health. There is a growing body of work examining PFAS, but it's difficult to study the health risks of each individual one. Chief of the Goose Creek Rural Fire Department, Robert Maybaugh, also agrees that added chemicals are a concern, but there are too many unknowns.
Is that risk there? Yeah. Is it greater than any other risk that we're faced with? Again, we don't really know that.
Most recently, a federally mandated study by the National Institute of Standards and Technology conducted at both its main campus in Maryland and the Charleston-based Hollings Marine Laboratory and led by researcher Rick Davis confirmed PFAS are more concentrated in the outer layers of turnout gear jackets than the innermost layers touching the skin. But researchers have concluded additional studies are needed to understand the exposure.
We're not just trying to solve a problem about today. We're trying to understand where PFAS might be in the next 20, 30 years, because it just doesn't go away.
But a major concern is what the quality of the gear will be like, and if the performance levels of the gear now, like the ability to repel flammable diesel fuel, can be replicated without PFAS.
There's a high likelihood that your gear could catch fire. It's not a reason that we can't change. It's not a reason we can't move forward to what we call PFAS-free options. But it is something that firefighters have to know about before they put that new set of gear on.
Even if a solution is found soon, I'm told that replacing even just one set of gear costs thousands of dollars, which could disproportionately affect smaller departments with less access to resources.
We're in a no-win situation. We provide our folks with the best possible equipment that we can. We look out for them as best we can, but every day there's a new risk.
At the beginning of 2024, the National Institute of Standards and Technology released results to a follow-up study that found that textiles used in firefighter turnout gear tend to release more PFAS when they are subject to wear and tear. While more can be done to protect firefighters, in April of 2024, the Environmental Protection Agency took steps to help prevent PFAS exposure for more than 100 million people. The EPA set strict limits on 6 forever chemicals in drinking water, the first national limit of its kind. To learn more about PFAS and to see if they have been found in waterways near you, go to InvestigateTV.com and search Forever Chemicals.
Coming up, some snacks could be putting your smile at risk.
Brushing off that fermentable carbohydrate or that sticky sugar, even if it's not sweet, can be really important for preventing cavities.
We debunk the myths around dental care and uncover the truth about what can lead to cavities. You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime, streaming online. Get the app for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. They're free to download.
It's a health concern that can go overlooked until you feel that pain in your mouth. We are talking about cavities. And the CDC reports by the age of 34, more than 80% of people in the U.S. will have had at least one. But health experts stress it is preventable.
In this medical mythbuster, reporter Viv Williams has an in-depth look at why you can't blame all of your tooth troubles on candy and sweets.
Cavity prevention involves more than just keeping your hands out of the candy jar, so says Mayo Clinic pediatric dentist Dr. Elise Sarvis.
We think about staying away from candy and sticky things and stuff like that. But really, I find a lot of families don't know that regular childhood snacks
can promote cavities too. How could a cracker be as bad for your dental health as a candy bar? Sarvis says it has to do with the type of carbohydrates called simple carbohydrates that are found in both of those foods. White flour products such as bread, crackers, pasta, and baked goods contain the same type of carbohydrates as candy, chocolate, and other sugary treats. Sarvis says these simple carbohydrates are not in themselves the problem, but what happens to them when they come in contact with microorganisms in your mouth is.
The bacteria that cause cavities are fueled by carbohydrates. And what they do then is they poop out acid, and that gets onto your tooth and it starts to dissolve away the tooth.
If that process continues, cavities can form.
Brushing off that fermentable carbohydrate or that sticky sugar, even if it's not sweet, can be really important for preventing cavities in children and adults.
If you can't brush right after eating simple carb snacks, Sarvis says to rinse your mouth out with water. That will help remove any food that might be stuck on your teeth. With this medical mythbuster, I'm Viv Williams.
The Associates of Dentistry in Missouri says there are ways to reduce the amount of sugar you consume. They say to read the food labels closely and look for added sugars on the ingredients list. Try to avoid sugary drinks and choose whole foods like fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, plan ahead. Making a grocery list can help you avoid impulse purchases that might not be as healthy.
Still ahead, sparking interest in unexpected ways.
Super fun, I love it.
See how students are getting more than just a lesson in sewing.
You sort of trick them into learning because they think they're just having fun and there's a guest speaker, but the quilting project is actually STEM in learning.
Our in-depth coverage continues. You can get connected to Investigate TV Plus on all social media platforms. Middle school classes rarely involve sewing, but a group of students in Baton Rouge, Louisiana combined science and math with the art of quilting.
The 7th grade project is led by a woman who has been quilting for nearly 70 years. And with needle and thread, she's connecting a new generation with the ways of the past.
Did everybody have their lines drawn and their 1/4 of an inch?
At 78,
and their sewing lines.
Cecilia Pettisclo never imagined she'd be back in a middle school classroom.
Hey, how you doing? My journey in quilting has taken me places I never thought it would take me. I'm gonna put my hand here so you can see it. I never thought I could have an effect on children.
But the influence she's having on these 7th graders at Southeast Middle School in Baton Rouge.
You got it.
Super fun, I love it.
Is undeniable.
I love learning new things.
For preteens, often entrenched in technology, this seemingly quaint hobby of quilting is new again.
So I'm sewing, and this is what I've done so far. I've sewed 2 of the 4-inch lines so far.
So if we just get the thread and when you rethread it, you have one long piece and the other short.
I just love the feel, the texture, and the history behind the fabrics. Where's the end of your thread?
Miss Seeley, as she's often called, has been making quilts since high school.
What you do, draw your line down the center.
And she teaches the students that dating back centuries, the patterns have told important stories.
So there was this special type of quilt that meant like for slavery, where you have to put on your best clothes and then you run away from slavery. And then there's this one with bear prints. It shows like you're in the forest and there's a big bear.
Where bears are, there's a place shelter and there's a place for food.
Yeah, so cool.
They really are enjoying it. Anything hands-on really brings learning to life. You sort of trick them into learning because they think they're just having fun and there's a guest speaker, but the quilting project is actually STEM in learning.
Science, technology, engineering, and math combined with art and history.
So it's important to get your center line and your 1/4 of an inch.
Math is an integral part as they measure, then cut, and stitch their fabric into a unique pattern.
I'm trying to follow my black line, which is what they taught us.
In this class, it's okay to make mistakes.
Now you gotta hold it in your hand, huh?
According to Miss Seeley, the final lesson to be learned may be the most valuable one of all.
To have fun, because anything that's so stressful that you feel like you're stressed out, this is not time for that. Reginald has 2 sides sewn.
But an opportunity to work together.
So you think this will be pretty when you're done?
Yes, I think it's going to turn out great.
Each student doing their part.
Anybody else need some help over here?
To create something beautiful. The quilting project was organized by the Baton Rouge chapter of the Lynx Incorporated, whose volunteers were also on hand to help the students. Through the Lynx, the students' completed quilt will be donated to a girls' dorm in the Bahamas to comfort them while they're away from home. And I was so surprised by how into it all the students were, even the boys.
You look at that class and they were glued to it and really into it and working together. What great lessons they're learning there.
I think they'll keep sewing.
I think they might.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Pell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, possible solutions to preventing more deadly crashes.
I absolutely 1000% believe that my family would be alive today if that technology was in cars.
We take an in-depth look at devices that can detect drunk drivers and hear from one critic who says the tech violates rights.